obviously the stuff we've been seeing with Russia and Ukraine, NATO getting involved. Let's put this open out. Let's throw this open idea out there, and Kris and Sachin, you can take it anywhere you want. The general question is Palantir going to benefit economically and value proposition wise from the heightened tensions that are going on in Russia and Ukraine because of the differentiated value they bring for times like this? Are we going to see an increase in organizations buying Gotham? Are we going to see an increase in NATO getting involved with Palantir? How do you think what's going on right now, which is a horrible, abhorrent situation in Ukraine, going to result in Palantir's business? Sachin, okay, I'm muting you. You're good.
Okay. So I think it's very important that I think both Foundry and Gotham are going to be heavily benefited. Okay, the reason for that is very simple. See, when 2008-2009 crisis happened, one of the biggest challenge for different banks and why the trust was low, that nobody knew that what's their actual exposure is. They had a view on their exposure, but there was no actual exposure. Okay, I mean, like same thing, like when COVID happened, and even a lot of companies went into crisis mode because they knew things are going bad, but how bad? How much they need to open their war chest to survive? What they need to do next? So when you go into crisis mode, you spend a lot of money just to understand first. I mean, what's actually I am in. Okay, and this is why, like when COVID started, why NHS went to Palantir, because they said we need solution today. And like I said several times, that Palantir's core value is time to value, how fast it gives you the value. So when there is crisis, I mean, when there is no crisis, I mean, people can speak for hours and weeks and they can delay FDIC contracts but when there is crisis, people need things now. And there is an idea like, okay, because what is happening in the Russia-Ukraine crisis, and NATO has to reflect in one way or other way, and being Palantir is a quite important ingredient in it. But guys, NATO doesn't have a P&L. NATO has a binary objective in terms of saving NATO allies' interest at any cost. Okay, or at any reasonable cost. But companies have P&L. They need to, I mean, like different companies are having different kind of exposure. Like some people ask me like why companies are stopping selling their product, because I said the thing is, at this particular time, they cannot change the cost of their product in Russia. So even if you sell your product, I mean, ruble is worthless for you. You have to convert it today or 5 years down the line back to USD. I mean, you are losing money. It's a common strategy that at this particular point, when the currency goes down significantly, you stop selling products. This is a legit business strategy. What companies are doing, they are using the legit business strategy and they are saying, oh, we are supporting Ukraine. Guys, that's not happening. Okay, I mean, you need to understand like which companies are really supporting or which companies are not supporting. Okay, same thing. I mean, so even like countries need to understand what's their exposure. I mean, people have that view. The people had the view, okay, we can manage. They try to bluff Putin in a certain way. But now we are saying that countries actually didn't realize or estimated what's their actual exposure to Russia is. I mean, Russia didn't estimate it very well what's their exposure or their economy. I mean, everybody was saying Russia is bulletproofing their economy for last 5-6 years to prepare for this. I mean, it didn't stand 5-6 hours. Okay, I mean, what happened in Russia, even in an extreme situation, you cannot imagine that happening in Europe or in US. But people who are leading the countries, they should be aware of it, that what would be that extreme scenario that it could happen, and what pieces in chess has to move, because it's not about like it is very less probability. It's about you do not play chance with very small probability if it can wipe you out. Putin has tried it. Ukraine has tried it. NATO has. The NATO came and they say, okay, yeah, we are thinking to bring it in Ukraine. They try to bluff it that we can even support Ukraine, and that's what kind of poked Putin in a way. And now when they realize they just cannot stop relying on Russia. Okay, now I mean, like, yeah, they say, okay, yeah, it's not NATO's war. I mean, so it's a failed strategy. And why it happened? Because people didn't know what their actual exposure is. In business, it matters. You will go bankrupt. It's not like politics that you can still, I mean, the accountability is somebody else. Okay, so Foundry is going to be very important in terms of estimating for a lot of companies supply chain risk in terms of scenario simulation, in terms of upgrading and making a coherent digital transformation moving forward. And yes, companies can opt not to use Foundry if they want, but that is done at a cost. And the cost is they are sacrificing critical time and taking risk to build something bespoke, which they don't know is actually going to work or not. It only works on PowerPoints. So it's let's see how it all plays out.
Do you real quick, do you think the Salesforce is going to have to sell Gotham right now, or do you think companies or countries are going to come to Palantir as a result of what's going on naturally?
So, I mean, like Gotham, I don't think they need that kind of sales force as they need in B2B. Gotham needs a very strategic kind of sales force. I think people like Alex Karp and some very senior people in company who have very deep understanding of how things work in military context. Okay, and my understanding is they are already connected with these because the market for Gotham is actually already fixed. It is NATO and its allies. Okay, and since they have been working for a long time, so one way or other way, I mean, people are connected. People know. I mean, in NATO and allies spectrum, they know what Palantir does. It's not like B2B where people just don't know what Palantir does. So the sales force in Gotham versus Foundry is different. One thing, however, is Apollo is something which needs more focus in government arena because Apollo is not deployed at a scale in government so far this much. So I think that is something which they'll be doing more and more, and especially in these kind of situations where edge use cases are more important to manage the crisis. Back to you guys.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people in the comment section. And one of the topics that I see keeps coming up is there are other companies that do exactly what Palantir does. And I'll take that. There are definitely companies out there that sell one of two things. They sell you tools to make a product similar to Foundry for your organization, right? They give you the building blocks to make a product like Foundry. 85 to 87% of all of those initiatives, they fail, right? So it's almost like me selling you a car versus me selling you different parts of a car. I'll sell you wheels, I'll sell you the seats, and most of the time, you're never able to get the product that you actually want. You want a fixed product. That's where one of the value propositions for Palantir is that they're giving you a whole product. They're not just giving you piecemeal things that you're going to have to utilize from different companies and then figure out a way to get them all to integrate with each other. That's a problem, right? Imagine going to Toyota to buy an engine, Mercedes to buy, the body, and going to Honda to buy, I don't know, the wheels, right? And then making everything fit together. It's hard. It's hard to do it. Not to say that you couldn't do it, but it's stupid. So it's better to just buy the whole car. And that's what Palantir is one of the main things is. So I don't see in my view right now, too many companies have a whole product. They're literally selling people pieces of different products. There are companies right now like C3 AI. I know a lot of people will say, like what's a good comparison for Palantir? And even though C3 AI, their technology is like way lower in terms of use cases and use potential, that would be a competitor. If you look at that perspective, then yes, it looks like Palantir is going to be kind of stuck in a zone where they're not going to be able to really make too many sales. But I can tell you right now, every company is going and doing digital transformation. Every company is trying to figure out data analysis, how to use their data to make operationalized decisions. So the pie is growing every single day. It's the same thing when you look at like electric cars, right? A lot of people are saying, well, there's no market for electric cars. How are you going to sell electric cars to people? Well, guess what? Now that Tesla's come out there, right? Does that mean that Tesla is going to, Tesla's market share is going to diminish like right away? Like, no. Even if Ford and GM comes up with their own cars, the total number of people buying electric cars is going to grow also. So I would probably say this: we are in a cycle just like how cell phones were, where you had products that did the same exact thing, but then there were other people that ended up becoming market leaders and differentiate themselves. And all the ones that couldn't hack it ended up dying out, right? So an example is if you go to year 2003, there was Nokia, there was BlackBerry, there was StarTech. I don't know if you guys remember that. Nextel had some phones, and then you had all these different manufacturers of phones, right? What ended up happening? Apple made a superior product. Those other companies, they couldn't hack it. They eventually died out. They couldn't get enough users to use them. And now we're left with maybe like 2 or 3 major cell phone manufacturers, right? So it's the same thing. I feel like that's right now Palantir is going to have, where you have two verticals that are growing. You have the pie that's growing exponentially because every company is doing data analysis on their data, and now we actually have the ability to do more because of AI. Not general AI, but a little bit less than general AI. General AI is like, like you physically talking to another person almost, and they have the ability to independently think. But AI is becoming a more normal thing now. So now a lot of that data can finally be unlocked and utilized in the operational settings. But that pie is growing. So that's one really good thing for Palantir. So it's not just, is Palantir competing for a fixed amount of money? Like, no, they're competing for a pie that's growing every day. That's number one. That's one value proposition that I'll just put out there. The second thing is they have a product that's whole. So it's not like you're buying small pieces of things. So when you're not buying small pieces of things, like bespoke things, as Sachin said before, you have the opportunity to actually do more, right? So that's the example that I would give right now with Palantir. Like, it's very similar to cell phones, where instead of just buying a cell phone and then buying an operating system and then buying some other things, you're getting the entire thing in just one clean package, and hopefully Palantir ends up being that default operating system for companies, and it reaches $1 trillion valuation. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but one of the companies that definitely has a potential to get there is Palantir.
I'm saying it's going to happen. No, I'm not saying it's going to happen. But again, when I was listening to that Karp interview as I was in the car, I was like, it's going to happen.
Okay, Amit Nash.
You know what's so crazy? I was listening to a Gali hyperchange video. Everyone says I look like Gali, by the way. And he was reviewing or I talk like Gali. He was reviewing a Ron Barron Tesla video from 2019, where Ron Barron said by 2030, Tesla will get to $1 trillion. And I was listening to it like, it happened in 2021. Now, obviously, lots of difference. But just to analyze real quick, Sachin, I want to get your thoughts on this. Tesla went to $1 trillion from 2019 predictions because of COVID and just like a demand for EVs soared, right? I think that would be sort of the big thing. And we transitioned a little bit more quickly than we thought we would. These types of black swan events that Palantir and Alex Karp have historically been talking about, if they continue to happen, which it doesn't seem like they're going away anytime soon, and the COVID pandemic was just the first sight of it, there's an accelerated need for the product. I'm not saying it's going to $1 trillion, but I am saying that hyper growth phase, when people thought Tesla would take 10 years to get to $1 trillion, it happened in a year. Palantir could get a little bit quicker to a better growth phase, given the need for products. If all of NATO were to adopt it tomorrow, for example.
The other thing also is it's beaten down to the point right now where even if it gets to, let's say, the Salesforce in 10 years, the Salesforce level of capitalization, which is about 200 billion, you're still looking at a 10x from what it is right now, as long as you're willing to buy and hold, right? Now the thing is, I mean, I'm not going to YOLO my entire savings into Palantir, but it does make a meaningful part of it, right? And I think that's what people have to consider. Like, hey, listen, I see this as an industry play, I see this as a company play, and I see this as a value play. For me, this is an industry play. I think Palantir has market leading, an industry leading product. So instead of me buying 10 different AI companies, right, where 8 of them might fail, why not just go with the one that I think is going to succeed, right? That's what I'm
actually thinking. Saving the entire Britain's healthcare system, right? That's when the C3 exactly. AI is brought up. It's just like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Other than that, in other parts of my portfolio, I usually diversify things. Like, I'm bullish on lithium, right? So, but the thing is, I don't have enough data on each company to evaluate each company individually. So instead of buying one lithium company or two, I just buy the index for it. But in terms of Palantir, I know they have a good product. I see a lot of stuff. I watch Code Strap videos all the time. So I'm so excited about it. I'm like, no, this is the one company I'm definitely going to invest in. So I have 5% of my portfolio in AI because I think AI is going to be big, and I think Palantir is going to be the one that covers that entire 5% of my AI investment.
Okay, so let me reflect on two things like Amit and Kris, you discussed is. First thing is, like Amit mentioned about this black swan events that can completely change the direction of a company. I think there has several events happen, and these events will keep happening. But in one way or other way, Palantir has not been able to make that much use as it should have been. Okay, I mean the reason for that I discussed earlier also that they underinvested on their sales force, and it eventually came to bite them. When they underinvested on their sales force, they allowed other companies to enter in the B2B arena. And yeah, these companies are not going to disappear. There is a permanent damage that Palantir has to accept. They need to outflank this by creating a range of solutions or a range of experience for their customers, where their customers I mean, these customers can come back to them. So at this particular point, there are black swan events, but the Palantir growth is actually constrained by themselves. This is why I feel that building a product is more difficult than unlocking this constraint on themselves. This is why I bet on Palantir. Okay, if I have to bet like other companies, can they make a product like Palantir? In theory, yes. But what is the probability of that? What is the probability for Palantir to unlock this constraint on themselves? So this is what my balance is. And I mean, I hear these things a lot of time that Palantir is competitive to Palo Alto or CrowdStrike. That's what Jim Cramer was dancing about. And I hearing comments. See, you guys need to understand big data or enterprise OS, and I have said it several times. It's several layers. You need infrastructure, you need legacy, you need all the data layers, data governance, data ingestion, all the data pipelines. You need API management, you need microservices, you need business apps, you need CI/CD, DevOps, you need cybersecurity, you need site reliability. Why you need all of this? Because you need to do prescriptive analytics, predictive, journal, descriptive, self-service BI. You need AI, you need automation, you need robotics, you need operational reporting, you need a lot of operational systems like CRM working, you need API management to manage it, to portal, monitoring, pricing, security, you need behavior analytics, you need advanced threat detection, you need cloud security, you need to do it at a speed in terms of how the data is ingested from the unstructured and structured data streams. You need data anonymization. You need some time to have physical cloud. Palantir can actually provide you physical cloud also if you want. I mean, does Snowflake does it? No, all of it. Does C3 AI does it? No. Does CrowdStrike and Palo Alto does it? No. Does AWS, Microsoft Azure and Google does it? No. So first thing is what Palantir does. Palantir does all of these things and many more of these things. Okay. The second thing is how they do it. Okay. One thing is, okay, I mean, C3AI is doing something, 20 more companies are doing something. That's fine. Okay. They have a same breadth of solution, but how they are doing it, that makes a different approach on that part. The third part is that which portion of these layers they are actually focused more. Like, for example, if you go to Google and AWS, so their first focus is that how to bring the clients on the infrastructure. Okay, how do we sell our infrastructure first? Palantir is not focused on infrastructure. Their focus is how do we get clients to work with us on business problems. So guys, I think this is, you need to think in all these three dimensions. What a company does, how it does, and what is the core where they are working. So that's when you put these three things together. I mean, anyone who is saying that Palantir is doing this, so what Snowflake is doing this, guys, I mean, you really need to go and check you need to read things. If Snowflake is doing what Palantir is doing, why Snowflake is not getting $6.5 million from each and every customer from themselves? Why Snowflake is not sitting with the US Defense Department? Why Snowflake was not called when the NHS was in shit and they needed help? So guys, anything you are telling for yourself to self-bias, be it in support of Palantir or be it in against Palantir or any company, guys, if you tell me that a company with a revenue of $69 million is doing exactly same like C3 AI, what Palantir is doing, guys, I mean, you are not even at the level I should even try to explain that how wrong you are. Okay, I just wish you good luck in the investing in big data OS. This is below my level.
Yeah, and I for anyone who's getting offended, or like, I don't think most people are offended, but if you think what Sachin's saying is mean, it's really not. If you just look at the core premise of the argument he's making, C3 AI, Big Bear AI, these are not what Palantir is. Now, Big Bear is at $7, Palantir is at $11. So if you look just at the price, you're like, oh, well, they're both AI data companies, the same. It's like, that is missing a fundamental story that is being presented, which is why we're talking for an hour on this podcast to really explain it more in depth. And I think Sachin's point about why is the NHS not running to Snowflake, right? It's a very simple question. Let's just ask that very simply out loud. Why did the NHS not go to Snowflake, say, hey, you guys have 6,000 customers. Can we be 6,001? And can you guys save us 28%, thousands of patients of wait time in our business? Like, Palantir didn't sell themselves to them. They came to them.
Well, let me explain one thing. The NHS could be using Snowflake. I don't know. I haven't done the research, right? But remember, Snowflake is just one part of a bigger picture. That's the whole point that I'm trying to make, and that everyone needs to realize. Palantir and Snowflake, some people like to think that they're competitors where they're competing against each other, and that's not necessarily the case. Yes and no at the same time, where if, let's say, I wanted to build a digital transformation product, right? And I want to store all my data, I want it to easily be retrievable, I'm going to use a product like Snowflake to send all that data to, so that this way I can take it and use it myself. With Palantir, you can actually use a Snowflake database and then have Palantir run on top and take data from a Snowflake database. They can reach out into Databricks, into all these other things. So the way that I would say this is, Snowflake, their biggest competitor is actually AWS, because, they're essentially competing for stuff like that. Palantir doesn't have that level of competition because that's not what they're trying to do. They're not trying to build out an infrastructure. The other thing is, when you really look at, I would say just go look at some Codestrap videos to figure out what the difference between Snowflake and Palantir is, and what the value proposition for each is. And one of the reasons why Snowflake has been successful in getting so many customers is because the way that I would express it is, every company right now is trying to do data analytics, right? So Snowflake is saying, well, you know what? We can give you the infrastructure so that you can build your own product, right? And all these companies are saying, yeah, that's a great idea. We'll hire our own data scientists. We'll make a product ourselves. Everyone will love it. And Palantir is saying, look, that's a stupid idea. Don't do that. Guess what? Palantir at one point in its history could have done exactly what Snowflake is doing, right? And said, you know what? We're not going to sell you a whole product. We're going to give you a modular product. Here you go, right? And that's one of the things that Karp on his last thing said we made a mistake, that there was a product that we had that we knew people needed, a fast way to retrieve data, but we didn't really put it out there, right? And I think we made a mistake because they were trying to build a car. Guess what? Sometimes people don't want cars. Sometimes people just want wheels, right? And they want to see what they can do with it. So I just think right now, I know a lot of people are trying to compare Snowflake and Palantir as some kind of competitors. They're not. I think Snowflake is very overvalued. I think a lot of people have these high expectations of Palantir. That Snowflake is just going to keep growing. Dude, they're on this trajectory of grow. And then guess what? It's going to come down. Once these companies realize that data science is hard and they can't do it themselves, and there's not enough data scientists out there to utilize all these secondary products, they're going to fail. And once they fail, Snowflake is going to, so right now, Snowflake is out there trying to sell its products, right? Or sell stuff. That's why they're spending so much on sales and marketing. And I don't know how much their sales and marketing includes something like credits too. Like right now, I don't know if you guys know, but let's say you go to AWS. AWS, in order to get you to use their product, will give you free shit. They'll give you free compute, right? How much is Snowflake giving? We don't know. And is that included in their sales and marketing? I don't know right now, right? But all I can tell you is, if 300 million is your revenue, and out of 300 million, almost 60% of it is going towards sales and marketing, do you really think you have a great product? Does Elon Musk spend that much money to sell you a Tesla? He doesn't spend any money to sell you a Tesla, right? Because the product speaks for itself. And I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with Palantir. But the difference is, Palantir, hopefully, realizes that there is some value in bringing knowledge to people, not necessarily sales, but bringing knowledge. So an example, and this is why even Coach Strap and like some of the other people that I've spoken to said they need to have a vibrant developer community where there's people out there that get trained on this stuff, that when they go into an organization, they're like, we need to get Foundry. This, and this are the use cases for it. And let's get Palantir on our side and let's get this product done.
So I see somebody was pumping a snow on the chat first, and now he has moved to Data Robot. Now, if you really think Data Robot competes with Palantir, just ask this question to Data Robot Salesforce: how many parallel data lines, data pipelines you can actually manage? And if they give you answer more than 2, please come and demonstrate to me. Okay, and then ask the same question to PLTR and see what answer they do, and ask after that is what else PLTR does. See, just by pumping comments in chat that you pump snow and you pump Data Robot, I mean, talk rational. Okay, it's not, I mean, information is in front of everyone. Okay, so there is no point confusing people here. Okay, one thing we have to understand that Palantir, one of the key issue they have is they need to be better at meeting clients where their clients are today. It's not like this, the clients are here and we can do this. This gap has to be bridged. This has been one of the biggest pain point Palantir had historically. They have acknowledged it. They are trying to be better at it, but they are still not good at it.
Yeah. Well, one thing, going back to what Kris said, and again, this is what I was listening to the Karp interview. He made a really good point that I want to bring up again. Karp said the culture of Palantir and the reason they're so product heavy versus sales heavy, which again, that was a mistake. But if you ask me in the bottom of his heart, I don't think he thinks it's a mistake, because I think he still thinks that Palantir is going to 20x. This is the interview where he said Palantir should be 20x. Is because technical people do not wake up in the morning and get ready to go to work for a company when they know they're creating a product that's just going to be sold in some out of the box mechanism by which the sales force is going to completely just, take the product and just do blah, 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 and then try to sell it. He said that his point was that technical people, and the reason Palantir has been able to retain them at the highest of levels, which is why the product is so differentiated from a Data Robot, from a C3 AI, from a Big Bear, etc., is because those people feel passionate when they're actually building a product that they know is fundamentally going to change the world or fundamentally have a differentiated impact than everything else. And that's why Snowflake is much bigger, going much faster, but that's why they also have a stronger sales force. And that's also why Snowflake acquired Streamlit, I believe is the name of it, for $800 million. Karp's point was that these big companies, they can only mask the insecurities and weaknesses they have in culture of talent by acquiring other companies. And the acquisitions are very messy and they usually don't work. If you've ever gone through an acquisition process or researched it, it is very difficult to actually acquire a company and make everything be a clean fit. But Karp was saying that is and I'm doing a video on this later, so we'll get more thoughts on it. This is the only way for these companies to have a competitive edge. Whereas at Palantir, they don't need to acquire other companies because the product itself is what they're differentiated for in their value proposition, as Kris was saying. Whereas at Snowflake, they don't have a differentiated product. They have a good sales force. But, and again, they're not a bad company, but they have to acquire other companies to add differentiations to the product. Whereas the product team internally, because of the technical talent that Palantir has, that they're able to retain because of the culture they've created to get them to give a crap about the product, is creating. Now, the market doesn't get that. And there's a lot of reasons the market doesn't get that. But if you understand that story, you can invest in Palantir and I think go to sleep for the next 5 years.